Welcome back. Time to focus on the environment. Delegates from 200 countries have been meeting in Bonn, Germany for 2 weeks to work on a detailed rule book. Yes.
So there has to be rules.
Call it a new constitution. Call it a new constitution for the sustenance of the environment, for the Paris Pact, such as how to report and check each nation's greenhouse emissions. The Paris Agreement sets a goal of ending the fossil fuel era this century and limiting warming to well below 2 degrees Celsius and above pre-industrial times. So they are trying to come together with a constitution, a global constitution, to make sure
this
that
is the way to go.
Exactly. And anyone who falls out of
line,
no, but that is not for us to say. Okay. Well, we have in the studio 3 gentlemen. Professor Adebayo Otitoloju, Professor of Environmental Toxicology, UNILAG. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
The Apostle of Environmental Activism and Protection, Desmond Majekodumi.
Thank you.
And another environmental conflict expert or environmental activist, but preferably a conflict expert, Shola Adeoye.
Thank you very much.
Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Okay, so let me start with you, Desmond. COP23, 200 nations gathered, talking about, yes, we're done with the Paris Pact Agreement. Now let's see how we can get this beyond here. What's your take?
Well, first and foremost, I just have to thank God for waking up in the city of Lagos. In fact, every Nigerian in whatever city they're in, Kaduna, Ibadan, Abeokuta, should just thank God that we're not waking up in Delhi. Because in Delhi, children have been kept away from school for over a week. Millions of children have been locked up in their homes. People aren't even allowed, people are advised to just stay at home. Why? Because of the massive amount of man-made pollution that has inundated that city of Delhi. It's dangerous to breathe the air in Delhi. Luckily, at least in Lagos, so far, our air is comparatively safe. So why I'm mentioning this is because it buttresses the seriousness of this conference that has been going on in Bonn. It's the 23rd one that they've had. And it was triggered off actually 25 years ago by something that people call the ripple effect. There was a scientist, a professor from one of the universities, like our esteemed colleague here, you know, professor of ecology. 25 years ago, he signed a declaration with 1,500 scientists, including 90 of the living Nobel laureates at that time, warning the Earth. In fact, the declaration was that mankind is on a collision course with nature. And they listed several areas that the collision was happening. You know, in terms of degradation of the sea, in terms of overpopulation. But they also mentioned the fear of climate change, which appears to be increasing rapidly. Now, why I mention this is that last week, the same Ripple scientist signed a declaration with what? 16,000 global scientists and growing, giving the same warning that saying 25 years later, we still haven't accomplished much and climate change is taking over. Now, it was this declaration of 25 years ago that inspired the United Nations to start this whole process of the COP, the Conference of the Parties Against Climate Change. And they discussed, and there was a lot of jojo, a lot of, you know, refusal to accept the seriousness of the situation. That, hey, look, we are imperiling the life support systems of this planet. We're endangering the future of our children. So, in a nutshell, to answer that question, you know, what's happened at COP? Yeah, it's great. We're really, really excited that at least the world is getting together. Nigeria, by the way, was well represented. Nigeria said some very, very good statements there. But the basic takeaway was that there's a lot of talk a whole lot of talk when we need very, very definitive action. 16,000 scientists all over the world are telling us that this is a serious situation. We're approaching a critical breaking point, a critical breakdown of the Earth's climatic condition, of the climate balance, that, you know, a perfect creator. You see, we have to get this right. We have to understand that the God who created the heaven and the earth is a perfect God, and he deals in perfection. And that's why the systems of Earth, the planetary systems that made this Earth just a tiny diamond in the sky, like heaven's poetry to us, the only habitable planet in all of the solar system and probably all of the other solar systems, the only one. The perfect God that created the Earth in this way created a perfect system, and part of that perfect system is the planetary gas balances, the various ratios of gases. And now we have just been pumping all sorts of toxic pollutions into that gas, and we're messing it up just like they messed it up in India.
And some will say it's a question of ignorance. But Shola, that man's activity as against, now there's an apparent conflict here, man's activity as against God's plan. So we've had these conversations from 25 years ago based on that declaration. Now another declaration has been signed last week. So how do we get all of this together, especially here in our country?
Yeah, well,
because Desmond even said Nigeria made some good statements there.
We'll find out the statements.
yeah, we agree. Of course,
okay.
we allow me to say we, because I'm a Nigerian.
Yes.
I'll always be, and I'll continue to be. We made a good declaration, and of course, from my point of view, it's just not just Nigerian declaration. It was an African position that we put forward, which was nice, so to say. But the question is, when we made an African proclamation, do we have our own kind of declaration? Do we personalize African declaration, so to say? Back to the way you framed the question initially. Yeah, the conflict is there, so to say, and no one knows when this conflict is going to end. Yes, the earth is created perfectly. We all know that. Either you accept that God created it or not, the earth initially was perfect, but because of a capitalistic kind of, thinking, ideology, we just want to amass wealth, whichever way we want to do it, and then we continue to pump these dangerous gases into the atmosphere, and that's the essence of the conflict. That's the beginning of the conflict. That's what keeps the conflict going. And we saw it also in Bonn, because America has two different kinds of delegation. You have the state delegation, you have the, the non-state actors, and some states in America coming to, give a different kind of statement from what the presidency was actually, interested in. So there's another kind of conflict. So 25 years on, the conflict continues. That is just the way I would see it. But the most important thing is, for Nigeria, we should be part of the solution, not part of the problem. And that means that our dependency on the fossil fuel, so to say, we need to think about it, we need to do something about it. So that is the way I'm going to see it, that is the way I see it, that is the way I'm going to, put it. So on our own, we push forward the African position, and I hope we'll continue to stand by this African agenda. You understand? Yeah. Because we always have this big African position, and at the end of it all, you see Nigeria going one direction, Cote d'Ivoire take a different, road, Angola take a different road. That tells you the kind of politics we play within the African Union. So, but then, if we can advance the African position the way it was put together, and the way it was also, laid out in Bonn, I think Nigeria would be a country to be reckoned with,